So Mia, given your perceptions of the future of this career field and the notion that it seems to be getting bigger, faster, what advice would you have for students as they position themselves to be successful as they move forward?
I think it's a really exciting time, to be honest. It's kind of scary, but with a lot of the ambiguity we have within the cyber realm, there are lots of opportunities. So I would say, like, whatever you choose to major in, make sure you understand it really well, and make sure you understand it well enough to explain it to anyone who doesn't have a clue. And I think it's important because in my former life, I was an engineer, and then now as a lawyer. And in those instances, it was very multidisciplinary. I was trying to figure out how I can help someone else and how I can also leverage their skills. So that was really important. And if you actually need to kind of narrow in on certain skills, there's courses called SANS, S-A-N-S, SANS courses that may help. They'll help you understand the cloud better or different, like cyber network exploitation. There's all types of opportunities there. Outside of what you can learn from books and other folks, I would say your soft skills are extremely important. I think learning how to influence without authority is huge. That's something I've had to work a lot on, because when you get your first job, it's like, wow, you're at the bottom of the totem pole and you're smart, but can you have any influence over what's happening? And you can. So I would say for that, LinkedIn actually has a lot of free courses that you can take talking about influence without authority or imposter syndrome to help you overcome that. And then finally, I would say just getting the experiences. So while you're in college, you could intern during the summer to get certain experiences. And while you intern, you have to make sure to network, because that really is everything. And I do a lot of my networking via LinkedIn, especially since we've all been on lockdown, but that's been huge. Reading someone's bio, reaching out, asking them about their journey, and just potential opportunities that maybe you can't find on the web, right? And I've had folks in my office ask, like, hey, an intern who'd be interested in working on this? And I'm like, actually, I do. So I think networking is everything, and that allows you to get those experiences you need to really stick out.
Are there any particular resources that you would suggest to students in terms, and I'm thinking about self-study, reading on the topic, sort of resources that maybe you use or you would recommend that they take a look at?
So when it comes to resources and figuring out more what's happening in this field, I would say, this is kind of weird, but to some extent, looking at C-SPAN and going on the Hill and seeing what's actually happening in Congress, I think that has a lot of sway in what happens at tech companies and law firms, et cetera. We're all watching it. We have to figure out what they're going to do next, if there's going to be a regulatory situation, or we have to know how to adjust and kind of have our finger on that pulse. I would say also, again, I think just the free courses from LinkedIn, and then the SANS.org to me has a lot of more of those technical skills if you need to acquire them. Like if you want to do red team or blue team, they have courses you can take to be able to master that skill. They're on demand. They also have in-person courses. And I think they're amazing and priceless. And we definitely look at that when it comes to hiring, because you will get like virtual machine environments and be able to do things hands-on. And that's really critical. So yeah, I would just say paying attention to what's actually happening on the Hill, because again, that's the regulatory environment. And that's something that even our engineers have to pay attention to, right? They just can't create something if it's going to be illegal in a few years or something that we're actually against as a nation. So I think it's just important to keep your finger on that pulse for sure.
So what are some of you're an attorney, while you may have an engineering background in your past, what are some of the other roles that students should be thinking about around or touching the cybersecurity space?
I would say one of the most important roles that we have and that I look for is like a program manager, someone who really can understand how multiple a department's roles kind of fit together to achieve a common goal. And our program managers are able to understand what everyone brings to the table. and what the goal is and when it needs to be accomplished by. And that's just a skill that you can definitely learn in school as well, right? By kind of keeping yourself open to learning about a variety of fields and careers, but also something that you hone in while you're interning or maybe at your first job, where you're like, wow, this is how all this falls together. This is what leadership is saying. Here are some proposed directions to get there. And this is also where influencing without authority matters, because a lot of PMs actually aren't in a position of authority, but they have to still be able to drive results. And it's also one of those jobs where you can almost have any major and end up being a program manager or a project manager helping to drive results. It's not major specific, which is fantastic. You can bring almost anything to the table, whether you do have a STEM background or you're more poli-sci. We definitely have program managers with a variety of backgrounds. That's been super useful.
And how would you describe, the role of a program manager? What are some of the skill sets that might make sense for someone who would be interested?
I would say listening skills. You have to know how to listen. I think you have to be able to read people, like have your soft skills, right? Figure out what they're really trying to say when they're not saying it clearly. Be able to tease things out. Again, get people moving and be able to influence things. Be able to deliver, so presentation. Also deliver bad news, right, to your management. So I would say communication, organization is huge. But also the ability to understand things quickly. So, okay, like what are the engineers working on? What are some of their roadblocks and how you can actually help them? But also, probably most importantly, when they first get to the company, what they're doing is trying to figure out all the movers and shakers of the company. What is this group doing? Why are they doing this? What is that grouping? How all these groups come together? So I think understanding the organizational structure, being able to figure out how to influence it and drive clarity, manage expectations, are all really key skills.
It sounds a little bit like being a consultant.
Yeah, it is.
But it does sound like something that is tailor-made for liberal arts type of preparation,
it's amazing.
Which is really cool. So I'd recommend students take a look.
Yes.
Now, as you think about your own experiences and perhaps those that you observe around you, both at Microsoft, but just generally in the working world, what are some of the challenges specific to women in this career field that they should be aware of, and maybe what should they do?
I would say to some extent you have to manage your reputation, no matter how you identify. And to some extent, it's also proving yourself. And I was always told by my manager's manager, she said that if you're not given a seat at a table, sometimes you have to bring your own chair. So stay confident.
I like that.
Keep fighting. I know, I thought it was amazing. And she actually printed it out and put it on my desk one day. And that stuck with me. And I'm like, wow, yeah, where there's a will, there's a way. So if you see there's an opportunity and no one's listening, no one's hearing you out, figure out different tactics. Is there another way to influence, right? This is the influence without authority as well. Because even if you have authority, I have seen women kind of spoken over or kind of corrected in public. I think they call it like mansplaining. So you will see with some of that stuff in the workplace, but just stay confident and keep going. And yeah, eventually you'll get folks' respect. But unfortunately, to some extent, you have to prove yourself. But to prove yourself, you need to make sure you have a seat at the table. So I think you do get a little bit of exposure to it in college if you ever have group work, which everyone hates, I think, because you tend not to have any authority and you feel like you're just forcing folks to do the needful and it's just frustrating. And I think that's kind of like your first intro to influencing without authority. It's like a group work, right? I hated group projects. And then you get at work and you're like, oh, it's my whole life is group projects.
Mia, do you have any other parting thoughts for the students?
Just stay confident, keep fighting, network a lot. Leverage LinkedIn to reach out to folks. They will help you. They've been there. The climate's changing, but I would just say network and just keep fighting. Super.
Well, we've been speaking with Mia Little, cybersecurity attorney with Microsoft. Thank you so much for your career field perspectives, Mia.
Thank you. I appreciate it.